Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to a special story that happened to me today. I think that this video will be my favorite video on my YouTube chess channel, at least for me, because today I'll analyze the game, my game, against Teimour Radjabov, the top grandmaster from Azerbaijan. And in my eyes, Teimour Radjabov is really the hero of these days because Teimour Radjabov refused to play in the candidates tournament in 2020 because of this coronavirus situation. And I think that's a great message that Teimour Radjabov has sent to the world, because I work as a police officer and I face these problems on my work because of this coronavirus situation. So I think FIDE should have postponed simply this candidates tournament, then Teimour Radjabov would be simply playing, and that would be, I think, a fair decision by the FIDE. Even now, if because of this, because the candidates is started, I think the candidates should be simply started all over from the beginning, and then Teimour Radjabov should really play. That's not just my opinion, because I played this game against Teimour today. That was my opinion from the beginning, and I've mentioned that many times in my videos. And when I noticed that Teimour Radjabov created a YouTube chess channel, I immediately posted him and recommended his chess channel immediately to the chess world, because I think he can really show his great games. So as I said, today I had the opportunity to play such a tough and strong grandmaster. He's really this Azerbaijan school, because Garry Kasparov is also from Azerbaijan, and they have this similar style of playing. They play many kings Indian, they play many of this knight of defense, they play many of this tactical openings. At least Teimour Radjabov used to play it when he was younger, and I remember always this game between Radjabov and Kasparov, in which he really crushed Kasparov in 2003 and demolished him. That was, I think, his favorite game, and he published that game also on his YouTube chess channel as his favorite game. So what I wanted to say also before we start to analyze the game, I hope you have the time, because I'm really excited. I haven't prepared a speech here, I'm just speaking from my heart. It's a very nice thing for us, what my brother-in-law AGADMATOR did. He pulled off the stream today, and I played on his tournament, and I finished on the third place, which I think was a great success for me. And then Teimour Radjabov played some games against some subscribers. First, he played the game against my brother. My brother unfortunately lost the game, and the problem in this game for Teimour Radjabov was that he wasn't moving the moves. So Antonio moved the moves. I'll show you the link of his stream, of course, in the description below, so you can check out. It's at the end of the video, so the last 10 minutes is the game between Radjabov and me. So you can also check out on Radjabov's comments on my play, and I was really honored what he said about my play. He said that I have really a great style of playing, and he also mentioned one of my games that he was watching when I played the King's Indian against another player. Then he also mentioned that I really have a great theoretical knowledge of particular sidelines of the King's Indian, because he also played this particular opening line also many times in his opening. So I think I'll show you also that King's Indian game in the near future, but today I wanted to show you really this game between Radjabov and me. And as I said, thank you, Antonio, for suggesting me to play against Teimour Radjabov. Antonio, my brother-in-law, really helped me to make this happen, because I'm not so popular maybe on YouTube like other streamers, other YouTube chess channels, but Antonio gave me now the opportunity to play such a shark, such a great player, Teimour Radjabov. So let's see now what happened. And I've watched now, of course, many times the video, the reactions by Teimour Radjabov. I think I can tell you in particular moments what Teimour Radjabov exactly said. So here Teimour opened with the move e4. We have c5, knight to f3, and I go, of course, in my favorite opening in the hyper-accelerated rank Sicilian defense. And at least I think I have some kind of a theoretical knowledge. And if you're familiar with my YouTube chess channel, I've created this hyper-accelerated rank Sicilian defense series and also the King's Indian defense series, so you can maybe check it out. I think I have covered many possible lines, so you can have a good opening repertoire as black. Especially, I know we all have troubles to play against with black pieces. Here in the game, Radjabov played the move c3, which is the Alapin style of playing, of course, with the idea to crack the position with the move d4. And basically, there's no good way for me to make something happen here. One of the best ways is, of course, to play the move d5 immediately to crack here white pawn center. But in the game, I played the move bishop to g7 because this is simply my opening preparation. As said, maybe from an engine level point of view, d5 is better, but I'm waiting a little bit. I'm waiting this move d4. I played c takes d4, and after c takes d4, now we have d5. So, of course, I don't want to leave the position like this. I don't want to have this pawn central control. If I play something like d6, I think this would be simply too passive. I would play something like knight to c3, knight to f6. But after this potential d6 move, I'm always vulnerable to maybe some pawn storm possibilities by white with potential e5 move. So that's why I decided to go into this line, which I always do, is the move d5. And what white can do now is, of course, to take e takes d5. Then I have knight to f6, and I would simply try to grab this pawn and continue the game against this isolated pawn on d4. So it would be a battle of an isolated pawn situation, and the funny thing is that I've created also recently this isolated pawn, the strategy, how you should play against an isolated pawn and with an isolated pawn, so you can maybe also check it out on my YouTube chess channel. Here, after the move d5, Radjabov played the move e5, which isn't a mistake. It's, of course, also a great move because, first of all, white has always the advantage of space. White has occupied the 5th rank. What disadvantage white has here is sometimes, in some occasions, this pawn on d4, it can be attacked by many pieces. So basically the battle is around this d4 square, and that's why I played immediately the move bishop to g4. Here, after potential h3, I think you can immediately take bishop takes f3, and queen takes f3 is, of course, a possible continuation here for white. But what you should notice about these positions after the move d5 and e5 is that the position now in the center is blocked. So when the position in the center is blocked, sometimes you can have the opportunity to give up maybe your bishop for the knight in order to have the position even more close. So the knights, of course, love the close game. So that's why I played immediately the move bishop to g4. If you play something like e6, for instance, let's just imagine, you see, I will never be able to get out with this bishop. This bishop would be always blocked out by my own pawn. So that's why bishop to g4, and then I'll try to lock the position in the center, maybe with some e6 moves. But still, I don't like my bishop on c8, so even if I have to give it up, at least I have solved the problem of a bad bishop situation. So here knight to c3, which I most often like to play against, because this was, I think, a slightly inaccuracy in opening preparations by Teimour Radjabov. Here the problem about this move knight to c3, it allows me now to get an extra tempo. I think the best way here for white is to proceed with the move bishop to b5, attacking the king. I would be forced to play something like knight to d7. Knight to c6 would be, I think, a mistake by me. So after bishop takes c6, we have b takes c6, and now, even if I'm continuing now the game with the bishop here, I simply don't like here this backward pawn. In the main strategy now for white is somehow to play maybe something like rook to c1, attacking my backward pawn. This would be really a problem for me. Even if I can cover it somehow with rook to c8 ideas, then white's idea is to play something like knight to c3 with knight to a4, and then knight to c5, cementing here the position on the queen side, create a very powerful outpost of the knight on c5, and I will simply continue the game with this backward pawn. So it would be, I think, here a bad game against such a top grandmaster. So, but here after the move knight to c3, so you see Radjabov didn't play the move bishop to b5. It allows me now to play knight to c6. I don't want to play this move knight to d7. Knight to c6 is much more powerful because it attacks, of course, the d4 pawn here in the center. And now after bishop to b5, you see, I'm not risking again to have this backward pawn. I have now the opportunity to play rook to c8. So in my opinion, Radjabov should have proceeded here with this move bishop to b5, I have simply knight to d7, and now Radjabov has the opportunity. He doesn't need to take here the knight on d7. He can play knight to d2, and if I simply develop maybe knight to h6 or similar ideas, then h3 is here a possibility. So bishop to f5, bishop to e6 wouldn't be good. I would be forced now to play bishop takes f3, but now after knight takes f3, you see this knight is pinned. This knight doesn't have a good square, because this knight can always be kicked away with some g5 move. So in order to make something happen, I have to play maybe here in this position f6 immediately, cracking the position, cracking this this very nice space advantage that Radjabov has created here. So here, as I said, after knight to c3, I'm feeling already a little bit pleased. I'm really feeling better than if Radjabov would have played this move bishop to b5. So I continue knight to c6, bishop to b5, and as I said, rook to c8. We have bishop to e3, because you have to also protect on this pawn on d4. There are some tactical threats. If I get out of the pin, maybe a3 b5, a6 b5, kicking away the bishop, and then to play bishop takes f3 and followed with knight to d4 in order to maybe protect the d4 pawn. White is forced to take the knight with g takes f3 and then continues the game with the double pawn structure, and it wouldn't be good position here for white. So that's why bishop to e3, a necessary move. Here Radjabov has of course the opportunity, maybe even something to play queen to d2, bishop to h6, going into this normal attacks, trying to trade off my dark square bishop, maybe h4 h5, like in the Yugoslav attack, for instance. If you're familiar maybe with the Dragon Sicilian more than you know, in this Yugoslav attack, queen to d2, bishop to bishop to h6, h4 h5, and trying to checkmate on the h file. So in the game I played the move knight to h6, which is my idea to play the move knight to f5. I want to take out this bishop on e3. Then in most of the occasions white is forced to play f takes e3. He cannot take with the queen. Then again, this pawn on d4 would be vulnerable. So in the game, Radjabov played, I think, now a great move, h3, after bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and my problem is now that this queen move comes with the attack on the pawn on d5. Here I took my time because I saw my problem. Now it's of course around this d5 square, and first I've analyzed this line with castling immediately, giving up the pawn. After queen takes d5, okay, I would have the opportunity maybe to kick away the bishop here after something like a6, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and there is now this problem after queen takes d8, queen takes d8. Okay, I have now solved maybe some checkmate threats. Maybe I could try here after rook to d8. Here Radjabov can castle, but knight to f5. Till this particular moment, I've calculated. I'm sure that I would play maybe something like f6 in order to create to break really this pawn chain that white has built here. But I wasn't sure, because even if I do this, I still have these two weak pawns. So I wasn't satisfied with the outcome of that position. So that's why after this move queen to f3, I didn't play castling. I simply decided to play the move e6, which creates basically a new problem for me in the game, because now I'm vulnerable to here a little bit on dark squares. There are some maybe outpost possibilities here on d6, maybe on f6. So these are weak squares in my positions. Here in the game, Radjabov played a very nice move, g4, taking out this f5 square for me. So if he, for instance, castles, then I would have simply knight to f5. And I think in this position I have a comfortable game still with this double attack on d4. And now if I get challenged, I'll simply take out this bishop on e3 after maybe something like f takes e3. Now I can castle, and now again I would have a clear target, the pawn on e3, queen to g5, queen to h4 would be sort of an idea. Even bishop to h6 is a possibility to activate this bishop on that file. So I think it's an equal game for both sides, and I can play this position. So as said, g4, this was the move that of course paralyzed me a little bit here, because I cannot jump with my knight on f5 anymore. I have positional problems, and in the game now I finally play the move a6. After bishop takes c6, we have rook takes c6, and here I want to stop a little bit. Let's evaluate now the position. Of course, white has still the advantage of this fifth rank. Still, white has occupied this very important fifth rank, and with the pawn move e5. So, but still I have one advantage here. The position is better for white, of course, but I have one plan, and my plan here is to go into an endgame, because I want to go in an endgame maybe without these two knights on the board, maybe without the queens on the board. If this game goes into an endgame, I would have a good endgame, because the dark square bishop is not good in this potential endgame, because it's blocked out a little bit by its own pawn. So this pawn on d4, maybe the pawn on b2 could be an object of my attack of the bishop on g7. So that's why I want to really go into a favorable endgame. But it's not possible, because it's obvious that Radjabov played move h4, h5, g5. He's trying to create this flank attack. Still, he has the flexibility to castle on the queen side. He doesn't need to castle on the king side immediately. And in the game, he played the move h4, which again caused me some troubles, which again made me thinking a little bit. And in the game, I played maybe a bad move, knight to g8, with the idea is to finally escape with the knight, because there were some tactical threats on the h file. But the better move that I should have played here, I think, is the move castling. Because if, for instance, white tries now to crack the position with the move h5, I'll simply have g5. So I can pass through with this pawn. That's my main idea. And I think I still can hang on to this position. It's still, I think, an equal game. And then afterwards, I could play maybe something like f6, queen to f6, and attack again the weak d4 pawn. So I was a little bit scared about this flank attack. I didn't calculate it well. I think here, if you try, for instance, g5 to attack the knight, then I would, after castling, let's see again this potential position after castling, after g5, I would have simply the move knight to f5. So that's what I missed in the game. That was my problem, knight to f5. And again, I think I have a good position, because after potential h5, I could simply go something like rook to e8, after h takes g6, h takes g6, and after queen to h3. Still, I'm not so vulnerable to checkmate threats, because I can always hide to f8. My opponent cannot play queen to h8, because the bishop is covering this very important square, so I cannot be checkmated on the 8th rank. That's the most important thing about this setup. And now it's time for me maybe to attack with b4, b5, b4, queen to f5, maybe doubling up rooks on the c file. So this knight is a very nice protective piece. It's really creating this compact positional light square. So it will be, I think, again, a good continuation here for me. So, but I played this passive move knight to g8. My idea was to simply go the knight to e7 and then knight to c8, trying to get this bishop somehow, maybe on this diagonal where it aims against this h4 square. In the game, h5, of course, by Radjabov, and I played this move knight to e7. Again, g5 was a better move. With g5, I think, again, I solved the positional problems in the game. Okay, my Radjabov could have played maybe queen to e2 here, but h6 simply fixed the position. After f4, maybe g takes f4, and still I have maybe some troubles here around the square f7, but I think it's playable. So in the game, I made this mistake, knight to e7. I didn't play again this move g5, and here Radjabov played the move h6. He should have taken, I think, h takes g6. Here he has, I think, a comfortable game. This is a bad position for me. I think after knight takes g6 or maybe h takes g6, I think white can simply play on this idea to trade off the rooks. After bishop takes h8, now queenside castling is perfectly fine here for white. Now with the idea is to play rook to h1, getting this rook somehow again into the game. I have some troubles around the square f7. So here Radjabov, I think, missed this move. He played now the move instead of h takes g6, he played the move h6. And believe me or not, in this position, I kind of felt that I'm standing good now, because now the dynamics is suddenly off in the game, because this move h6, of course, creates a new tempo. I have to retreat with the bishop to f8, but there is now one problem for white. White cannot make so many great pawn moves. I think in order to split this position, in order to open this position, white needs, of course, pawn moves. So that's why I was really happy when Radjabov played the move h6. Here I thought that now I have solved my positional problems. Basically what I need to do is to play the move knight to c8 and now bishop to e7 would solve really the position. After queen to f6 it's not so dangerous. I simply have rook to g8 and still I will continue maybe with some knight to c8 ideas to forcing the trades of queens. If the queens in this position, for instance, is off, if the queens are off, then I think I have again a comfortable game because, as I said, I simply like then more my bishop's activity than white's bishop's activity because here the white's bishop is simply used as a part of the pawn chain. So, as I said, I played simply knight to c8 in the game. Rook to c1 was played by Radjabov, and now bishop to e7, and I felt really good now in this position. I thought that I cannot lose this position against any player. Now I was so confident against such a top grandmaster like Radjabov. Now after bishop to e7 I really felt good. So in the game Radjabov played knight to e2. Of course he needs to improve the position of the knight. The knight is not good on c3. The knight needs new squares on the board, and I played now I think a good move, knight to a7, because after rook takes c6, I have now knight takes c6, and I'm again closing the c file. The c file is closed. I don't have troubles because if rook to c1 happens, I don't have worries here that something will happen on that very important file, and I can simply again castle and play now finally my idea f6 or f5 to get this rook somehow into the game on the f file. So now you see I have also a very nice queen on bishop battery. So again I feel good in this position. So in the game queen to g2 was played instead of rook takes c6, so I simply castled. We have f4, very nice move by Radjabov, and I played king to h8. Here king to h2, and now I played f5. I want to simply crack the position. Here if you try g takes f5, that's the problem. I have simply rook takes f5. And Radjabov mentioned, as I said on the stream, on Antonio's stream, that he considered me being really a good player. I was really proud when he said that I really know my openings. He said that I really know what I'm doing here in this position. So here after the move rook to f5, okay, you could play maybe something like knight to g3, but I can simply play rook to f7, and you see white is never able again to push the pawn on f5. Again, I have a compact position here on the king side. I'm not worried about some tactics. Even f5, you see, I can take because there are no threats. The main threat of white is, of course, to create this checkmate threat on g7. That's the problem, so I can cover with this move rook to f7. So that's what I've calculated in the game. After the move f5, Radjabov played e takes f6. I played bishop takes f6, and you see Radjabov plays on this very natural idea to keep the pawns here mobile, to keep them somehow in attacking formations. Now again maybe with some possibilities to play the move f5. So here Radjabov played a very nice move, knight to g1, and here I think comes now the critical moment of the game where I think I have solved the positional problems. I played the move king to g8. What's the idea behind this move? Because I've noticed that Radjabov is trying to play knight to f3, knight to e5. He wants to cement the knight. When that happens, I would love to give up my bad bishop here on f6 because I simply have to give up the bishop because I want to, as I said, simplify the position, maybe trade off more rooks and continue the game with the bad bishop on e3. But what worried me, I need really a new square for the bishop. For instance, after king to g8, here after g5, now I would have this move bishop to h8, and now I have a new square for the bishop. And again, I'm waiting white to come on this square e5. When that happens, I would again have the opportunity to play bishop takes e5. So I needed to create this space. What worried me about a little bit is this move f5, and here I've analyzed this move in my head. So I've come to this conclusion that this is a bad move because here I calculate some tactics because I would have the opportunity to play the move bishop to d4. So that was the problem of whites. This discovered attack possibilities, because you have liberated now the dark square diagonal for the king here. After bishop takes d4, I would have the possibility to move queen to c7 and take the rook. So till this particular moment, I've calculated here queen to c8 after bishop takes a7. What I didn't see in my calculations, that I have this move queen takes h6. So I didn't see this till this particular moment. I've calculated. I didn't see that I can take when I calculated my tactics in the head. I didn't see that I can take. But still, I was satisfied with this position. In my head, I calculated that I will simply take the pawn. I couldn't see this connection in this tactical battle between this square and this square. So sometimes I miss this kind of things when the tactic is all over the board. So sometimes I miss this move. So in my head, as I said, I calculated till this particular moment. Didn't see this move, which would be, I think, a winning continuation here for me. So after the move, here, as I said, king to g1, king to g8, pardon me. Here, knight to f3 was played, and now I played simply queen to d7. I have to improve the position of my rooks, because now I want to challenge here Radjabov here on the c file. So knight to e5, as I said, I'm waiting this knight to come on e5, simply takes, bishop takes e5, and after f takes e5, believe me, in this position, I really believed I cannot lose this one, because still this bishop is bad, although I have this dark square problems, but now I can at least trade off these rooks. In the game, rook takes c1 was played, and now bishop takes c1. I've used now, of course, some engines. After rook takes c1, there is one problem here in black's position, pardon me, white's position. I have the move knight to c6, and I would simply try to play this move g5. If bishop takes g5, then I can, of course, take the pawn on d4. So this would be a problem. In the game, Radjabov played bishop takes c1, and I played simply knight to c6 again, attacking the d4 pawn, and now bishop to e3. And again, I simplify the position. As I said, I want a simplification here. After queen takes f1, I played queen to f7. And now, if this game goes into an endgame, that's Radjabov's problem now. I have this move after king to g3. I have again this move g5. Again, I want to take this weak pawn. As I said, the main strategy in this opening was simply built around this d4 square. So if bishop takes g5, I've simply knight takes d4, and now I think I have a comfortable game, because my king can block out these two pass pawns. I can create a blockade on g6, and still my knight is very flexible and can attack maybe this pawn, then after this pawn, also this pawn. You see, the problem is that this pawn is on a dark square, so sometimes white is simply forced a little bit to play with the passive bishop here to f4 or maybe to f6. So that's why Radjabov played a very nice move, queen to d1. He didn't want to trade off the queens. He realized that if this game goes into an endgame, that black is probably slightly better. In the game, I played queen to e7, and here king to g3. I played queen to b5. Before, I wanted to attack, of course, further the d4 weakness, expecting, of course, Radjabov to play something like queen to f1, and then I could take. But what I have a problem, of course, is here the potential queen to f6 move, followed with queen to g7 checkmate. So I have to be careful also. So this is really a 0.0 drawish game now in this particular position. So but I wanted to play on a win, of course, and the funny thing is, I believe it was in this particular moment, or even a little bit later, that Radjabov was running out of time, and because, as I said, Antonio moved the pieces for him on the stream. You can really watch the stream and the last 10 minutes of Antonio's stream today. So I added some times, because you have this option on Lichess. You can add time for your opponent. I made that happen because, of course, first of all, I had the opportunity to play against such a great player like Radjabov, and I wanted to really enjoy this game. I didn't want to win this game, for instance, because of time or similar ideas. I really wanted to play because I don't know when I will ever have the opportunity to play against Radjabov, when you have maybe the opportunity to play against Nakamura, Dingler, and Magnus Carlsen. So I've seen now many times in some messages by many weaker players. They say like, why should I play against stronger opponents, because I will only lose, and then I'm pardon me, what does Antonio say in this position? Sorry about that. That was Antonio's quote. So after what I was trying to say is, whenever you have the opportunity to play against stronger opponents, do it, because you can simply learn something when you play against such great players like Radjabov. So I wanted to enjoy really every moment of this game. So that's why I added time. I didn't want to win this game simply like that. Because it's a drawish position, of course, but still there is some tension. If you put this position into an engine, it will show you 0.0, but it still has a flexibility. Of course, as I said, I have this checkmate threat here, but still my attack is around this d4 square, so it's really a nice battle here. Queen to f1, I played again queen to f8 with the idea to trade off the queens. Here queen to e2 plays, and now queen to b4. Here Radjabov played now a3. Now it's Radjabov that goes for a win, because he wants to deflect me here to maybe a light square, to b3, and then he can play on dark squares and play something like queen to f6. And here again, I took my time. I tried to calculate, and I calculated the move queen to b3. But now after queen to f3, I've missed now maybe the winning move, because Radjabov played on this idea a3, which wasn't maybe the best moves. We should have simply done this perpetuals, and the game would end in a draw. What I've missed here is the move g5, which I haven't played in the game, because if now queen to f6 happens, of course I have first a check, queen to e3. It's not possible here for white to escape. After king to g2, I would simply do some checks, and maybe here after queen to g6, you see I have solved the positional problems, and it's game over here for white. So if bishop takes here in this particular position, let's go back. If a bishop takes g5 happens, then I'm going again into this favorable endgame. I would simply have this move knight takes d4. After queen takes b3, I simply have knight takes b3, and again I can simply play something like king to f7, king to g6, and simply attack these weaknesses. So, but in the game I played the weak move queen to d3, and here suddenly Radjabov has the winning game, because in my calculations, I've solved this tactic. After king to h4, I've calculated this. Knight takes d4, and Radjabov played the move queen to f6, of course, threatening the checkmate. But now in my head, as I said, I calculated this tactic that I have knight to f5, and here after g takes f5, that was played in the game. Here I would simply play these checks, and it's really a draw. So, but what Radjabov should have done here, I missed this move that he has. He has the move queen to f4. So it's now winning, I think, for white. I would have to retreat with the knight, knight to c6. After queen to f6, I would be forced to play the move g5 here. After queen takes g5, and now queen to g6. After trades of queens, this is a favorable endgame, I think, for white, because white has this pass pawn, and although I have a pass pawn myself, but still now the king could play much more freely. So as I said, in this particular moment, after the move queen to f3, I missed maybe a winning tactic here with the move g5. But afterwards, here I played the move queen to d3, and now after king to h4, I played this move knight to d4. But as I said, here after queen to f4, it's Radjabov that has probably the winning game. But now after queen to f6, it was a draw. So as I said, this was the line that I was seeing. And here knight to f5, g takes f5, and now queen to e4, here king to g3, and I simply played some perpetuals and managed to get a draw against such a great player like Radjabov. So I'm really proud. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. It was really a dynamic day for me. As I said, I finished on the third place on this AGADMATOR arena. Great day for me, and probably in the next couple of days I'll reach my 10,000 subscribers limit, and this is also a great thing for me. So chess is great, of course, and I really enjoyed this game. I challenged Radjabov maybe in the near future again. We'll see. He said on the stream that he will play against me again, so I would love to do that, because even if he smashes me 100 to 0, I don't care. I just want to get some experience. I want to play against such great players like him. So Okay, I hope that you realize this ideas of this opening. I think it's a great opening. I've seen also Garry Kasparov. He played against my nephew in this particular opening. He also wasn't satisfied, I think, with the outcome. So it was a great game. If you want to know more about this hyper accelerated ranked Sicilian defense, check out my series. Here's the link. And as I said, you can also check out my King's Indian video series, in which I show you also a very nice and effective way how to play against d4. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course. Thank you to Teimour again for playing this great game against me. See you soon.